In this section, we're going to talk about how to count quarter notes. Now, when you look at sheet music, you're going to see, a long staff, and then that staff is generally divided up into bars. Now, bars are just segments of time, and they're assigned a certain note value. And so based on that note value, that's how you define the time. I don't want to really confuse you like that. So let's just say if you're tapping your hand, and you're just tapping like this. Tap along with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we basically put 4 notes in that bar of music, and that 4 notes constantly repeats itself. The type of notes we're playing are called quarter notes. And so they're evenly spaced notes within that bar. So that's why you hear 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's absolutely crucial that you understand this concept. Most beginner drummers, what they'll do is they'll start playing and they'll just think 4 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's something you don't want to do. Okay? They're 4 evenly spaced notes in a bar of 4/4, which you don't even really have to worry about right now because we're going to get to time signatures and stuff a little bit later. But just think of a quarter note as 1 beat or 1 count. And so if you look at the sheet music, you'll see that there's 4 notes there within 1 bar, and each of those notes is accounted for 1 count. Okay, so that exercise would sound like this. I'm going to play it to a metronome at 60 beats per minute. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to speed up this exercise to 100 beats per minute. And all that's doing is it's not changing the note value. All it's doing is making the exercise go faster. So there's less time in between each of those notes. Okay, so don't get confused. We're just going to speed it up and play it at 100 beats per minute. All right, so on the sheet music, right below the bar, you're going to see a series of numbers. Numbers that go from 60 all the way to 100. Now, 60 is the tempo that I started playing it at, and 100 is the tempo that I just finished playing the exercise at. What you need to do is you need to start at 60 and then slowly work your way up to 100. Don't think you need to get there within 10 minutes or 5 minutes or as fast as this video went. Take as much time as you need to actually learn it at 60, perfect it for at least 2 minutes, and then once you get up to 100, perfect that for 2 minutes, and then move on to the next exercise. Okay, it's as simple as that, because it's absolutely crucial that you understand this concept, understand how quarter notes relate to the time within music at all different tempos. Okay, so now let's move on to exercise 2. Exercise 2 is basically the same type of rhythm. Again, it's just straight quarter notes, but now we're just going to move it around the drum set. So we're going to play it on the snare, the high tom, the mid tom, and the low tom. So at 60 beats per minute, it would look like this. And again, let's speed that up to 100 beats per minute. On the third exercise, we're going to put our right hand on the hi-hats and left hand on the snare. So count 1 is just on the hi-hats, count 2 is hi-hat and snare together, count 3 is just on the hi-hats, and count 4 is hi-hat and snare together. We're going to do this again at 60 and 100 beats per minute, which is the exact same thing I want you to do. I want you to be able to get it all the way up to 100 beats per minute. Here we go. Exercise 4 is going to continue to build on that, and now we're going to put the bass drum on counts 1 and counts 3. Again, I'm going to play this at 60 and 100 beats per minute. Now, it's very important if you're just starting out playing drums that you learn to count out loud. So when you're playing that, just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Because you really need to understand how these notes relate to time, right? How does a quarter note relate to a certain time within music, or a time when you're listening to a metronome, right? You need to know, especially as we get onto the different note values and the more challenging note values, because essentially they are more notes within the same amount of time. Okay, but we'll get to that later. Now let's go into exercise 5. Exercise 5 is a 2-bar pattern. Okay, we basically start with what we just played in exercise 4, and then we add exercise 2, which could be considered a drum fill. So snare, high tom, mid tom, low tom, and then go back to the actual beat. Here we go. And that is how you play quarter notes, and that's how they actually relate to the drum set, which is what's most important. I've seen a lot of teachers, they just teach us stuff on a practice pad, or they teach it, off the kit, which it's hard for students to translate. How does this actually work on the drum set? I know that was my big thing back in school. I didn't understand how math was applicable in the real world, so I just didn't have the motivation to learn it. So hopefully, you've seen that this stuff is applicable. This stuff is useful. The quarter notes are basically in every single style of music and every single piece of music you listen to. There's probably a quarter note somewhere there. And so once you can play these from 60 beats per minute all the way to 100 beats per minute and play them for 2 minutes each without making any mistakes, you're ready to move on to how to count eighth notes.